Great.com talks with Gary Whiteson, who is an executive director of POAC Autism Services. If you have not heard of them, they are an organization dedicated to helping children and adults with autism achieve their fullest potential by providing quality training, support, and recreation. If you're new to the podcast, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we are going to learn about a disorder that affects 1 in 54 children in the United States, and what powerhouses like the POAC Autism Services are doing to truly make a difference each and every year. Mr. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the Mr. Gary plug as well. We were joking earlier. That's what all the kids of the organization call me, Mr. Gary. Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Of course. I've done this a few times now with Great.com, and I typically try to jump right into the mission and what you have going on and all of this. The folks that have tuned into my specific episodes know there are rare occasions when I find someone that's either the founder of the business or they've been involved with the business. I call them a unicorn. They've been involved with the business a little bit longer than, the average tenure at a company. As I look at your journey, man, you've been there almost 16 years. Can you maybe start there and share a bit about your journey, how you were introduced to this, and why after 16 years, this mission, this is still calling your name? Like, why are you so attached to this?
Absolutely. I was senior management for an insurance company, doing really well, had my, game plan and 401k and everything all set. And then my ex-wife, but at the time wife, and I had our first beautiful child, first of 3. And Christopher was our first. And Christopher got diagnosed with autism at 3.5. And all of those years ago, he's 27 today. All of those years ago, I'm like, well, I have to do something different, because 24 years ago, people didn't know about autism. You mentioned the numbers. 24 years ago, the numbers were 1 in 10,000 children had autism, according to the CDC. So I'm like, well, let me go back to school. Let me, get my master's degree, learn about, autism, how to teach my son to reach my son. Because when Chris was young, he was pretty severely impacted by his autism. And I left my really good job and I got involved with POAC. POAC started with 4 parents around the kitchen table in my hometown of Bricktown, New Jersey. And when I got involved, POAC did 2 events. They did a conference for parents and educators and a picnic for the kids. That was it. And when Chris got diagnosed, I was volunteering almost from the very start of POAC. And then we talked about how could we make POAC grow. And I left my company and joined POAC full time. And the year before COVID, POAC had 328 days worth of free services or trainings and events for the autism community. Wow. So, and myself and my partner, Simone, co-work partner, Simone, separate families, we worked together to build it up to the largest provider of autism training, education, and recreation, bar none.
You mentioned your son, Chris. If I cannot remember, and I don't have it in my notes, he was diagnosed a little bit later in his childhood. Is that right?
Yeah, very often parents of children with autism or on the spectrum, as we say, they go to their doctors and they say, hey, something's not right here. We thought Chris had difficulty hearing because we would call his name and he wouldn't look at us. I would even go behind him and scream and he wouldn't budge. But if you click the power button of the VCR, he would hear the click and run downstairs. So it didn't make sense. He wasn't engaging with other kids. So we took him to audiologists. Oh, his hearing's fine, Mr. Whiteson, don't worry about it. We hired a private speech therapist, $80 an hour cash, not reimbursed by insurance, by the way. And that was 25 years ago. Oh, he's going to be fine. No one ever mentioned autism, ever. Went to his pediatrician 3 separate times. Something's wrong with my boy. And a parent never wants to say that, right? If anything, we say the exact opposite. And all 3 times, nothing's wrong with him. In fact, the nurse actually said, Mr. Whitesing, if you would just sit back and allow Chris to talk for himself, he would. I'm like, oh, okay. And he still wasn't talking. And now his younger brother at 2 was talking and Chris wasn't. So we enrolled him into a private preschool. And it was the Goddard preschool, really fancy. I think it was the first one in New Jersey. And I always joke because the director of the Goddard school, every time he said Goddard, he folded his hands. We had the Goddard philosophy. And it was just so funny. I whispered to my wife and she would stop that. You always point stuff like that out. So we enrolled him in the Goddard school.
Yeah.
And he was there for about a month. And the 24-year-old teacher, Miss Patty, and God bless Miss Patty wherever she is, who loved my son. And I know she loved him because he would come home every day with Miss Patty lipstick all over his face, smelling like Miss Patty because Miss Patty would hold Chris in her arms the whole day. And it was about a month and a half into the preschool. And she had a meeting with us. And she started the meeting with 4 words that did her and her entire profession the greatest disservice. She started the meeting with, I'm just a teacher, but I know kids and Chris is different. And then we relayed that, we went this. And she goes, you need to see a neurologist. And Josh, I don't think I'm a stupid man. I know I'm not a stupid man. I didn't know why you would take a healthy child to a neurologist. In my mind, I was an old person's doctor. I'm like, a neurologist? Like, why? Well, we did. And we called Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It was a 6-month waiting list. And it's still about that long to get a child seen if you suspect your child is on the spectrum.
Wow.
And the neurologist saw him 5 months later because I called every day and we got like a month earlier. And the neurologist looked at Chris. Oh, yeah, he has autism. No one even mentioned the word before. And it was at that moment that everything changed. Everything changed for us.
Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, there's a sense of relief, right? Because like at one point you're like, what is going on? I've talked about my own personal life at times with my stepmother. She was diagnosed with the terminal illness, a lung disease. And there were times where she was pre-diagnosis, she would have, a seizure or she would have an asthma attack and it would come out of nowhere. And we're like, what is causing this? Where is this coming from? And like you, we'd get a different opinion everywhere we went. And then we spoke with one specialist that had answers and reports and details and pointed to an answer that I think most would say, oh, I'm so sorry. But we also at the same time felt a sense of like, oh, we know, now we understand. Like now we at least can set some direction. We can start to build a plan and mission and like we can rally around something versus just wandering in the dark of like you said it, is he having auditory issues? Is there something else going on? Like there's just so many questions. And so it's an interesting time when you get that direction because there's a split fold. I know I sort of deviated us from the POAC Autism Services sort of mission and what you guys have going on. I want to put a bookmark in some of the events and things like that, but at a very broad stroke, who are you guys? What do you have going on? Yep. All that good stuff. Give me the details.
Our whole goal, our whole soul mission, the reason I get up every day is to make lives better for children and adults with autism, period. That's it. Then, okay, how do we do it is the question. We teach teachers to become better teachers. You have dedicated, passionate, intelligent women and men, mostly, females in special education, but, some men throw in there to give them the tools and the training necessary to get the most out of their students. We work with parents and caregivers directly, everything on increase in communication, decrease in problem behavior, socialization, dealing with safety and their rights, and again, how to get the most to increase their child's ability and overall quality of life. Then we have year-long recreational events, not just for the child or adult with autism, but their brothers and sisters. We just had a surfing camp last week. We have another one in a couple weeks. We're not only teaching the kids with autism how to surf, we're teaching their brothers and sister. It's a family. I can't imagine separating. Oh, sorry, it's just for the special kids. Johnny, you can't go, right? The whole family. And the recreational events, yeah, you would look at them. Oh, they're fun. They're incredible. Carnivals and this and that. So much more than that. They're practicing social skills. They're overcoming anxiety. They're learning to, when they check in, oh, hey, and what's your last name? I always go to mom, like, shh, and go. And we have kids with autism coming up. Hey, is Johnny here yet? Because they actually made a friend, which is real difficult for many of the kids on the spectrum. So we have kids with autism making friends with other kids with autism. We have siblings making friends with each other. And we have typical children making friends with kids with autism. And these are just not, oh, I'm being polite. These are my friends. I always say at POAC, your family, and that is not a marketing tool. I treat, and all of us here, your family. Like, Josh, if you have a child with autism, I instantly have more in common with you than my two sisters who I love dearly. And all I have to say to you, well, you know what it's like. And you get it. And you get it, your hopes and fears. And we have that. And these recreational events, you get to take your kid there, and it's not your child with autism anymore. Imagine this, it's just your kid. It's just your kid having fun and learning and doing things that you never thought they would do, So that's a piece. The third piece with our training, we've been training first responders for about 18 years now. Police, fire, EMS, emergency room staff, CERT teams, air marshals, crisis intervention team, fill in the blank. First responder. I do all that training. We've done over 72,000 first responders, and the training alone has been directly credited with saving countless lives. Time and time again, a chief calls us up. This child would have been dead if not for you training my officers. We concentrated in New Jersey. We're actually expanding it. I was just up in New York. I'm going to Pennsylvania. We will go anywhere to do the training. And the training's life-altering. The officers tell us time and time again, it's the best training they have in their entire career. Not just on autism, just in their career. I always joke that I'm Irish, so I love meat and potatoes, real important to me. So I want my trainings to be meat and potatoes. I'm not going to be one of the guys who talks way up here, above everybody. That's not me. My job is to, how can I increase the quality of life for this kid? And if I'm dealing with my first responders, how can I keep my first responders safe? That's my primary thing. Keep them safe. If they're safe, they can keep my guys and girls in the field safe. And how do we communicate behavioral de-escalation? No one getting hurt, getting them to follow simple commands and go on the day. And we don't even advertise. We call it our Autism Shield program. We don't even advertise that because we don't have to. Yeah. We do training and everybody just, tells everybody else. Our phone rings off the hook. And coming out of COVID, we're getting back in front of people, which I love. COVID was hard. COVID was hard for everybody. But it really stopped all of our in-person training because nobody was doing it anymore.
So much I want to unpack. I'm going to try to double click on a couple of the events, a couple of the plays that you're implementing to educate and sort of cause community, which I love. I wanted to first touch on, in your introduction, you hit a sentence that I think is important. That it's really interesting. It speaks sort of leaps and bounds of the business. You're the largest provider in training events in the state. I read on, maybe as the website, maybe as a blog post of just trying to find some research, but I read that you're not funded by the government or by the state. How does someone that's so involved in first responders, involved in a a disorder like this. I mean, it seems like if we had any funds, if there was anything to put funds towards, I think, there priority wise, I think you're trying to get police education, like you're in like the second bucket, right? Like safety, education. How are you just missing requirements? I'm not pressing on anything here. I'm not looking for anything. I just, how does this happen?
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's organizations, and we work and play nice with everybody else, and they usually have us come out and do training for them and their staff. We were at one conference, and they went around, they introduced everybody, and every single person was like, yeah, but POAC, we love, like every single person. And the person running the conference was like, really should be a POAC conference. I'm not sure what's going on. We're the grassroots, boots on the ground. I tell people our annual budget's about $500,000, and they don't believe me.
Yeah.
That's every single person's salary, and people have to get paid. Your police get paid, your priests get paid, we try to bring in the majority of our salaries through consulting fees and other things like that. But $500,000 includes every person's salary, the building, the insurance. If you do the tens of thousands of dollars, we have to take out insurance to teach autistic kids how to swim and be in the ocean and carnivals, everything, and to fund hundreds of free events a year. Yeah. Versus organizations that have budgets of 15 million.
Yeah.
And they do one event a year. One. And so it's like, the larger organization have frankly paid lobbyists. And they get money that way. We don't have enough in the bank to hire a lobbyist for $100,000, $150,000.
Sure.
So we're not part of that network, unfortunately. Our average donation is $25. Our average donation is $25. And so many of the parents that we help struggle with paying their bills. When Chris was young, I was paying more in therapy costs than my mortgage every single month. And you tell that to parents of autistic children, they're like, oh yeah, of course. You tell it to anybody else, they're like, get out of town.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I worked 2 and 3 jobs just to pay for his therapies, charging groceries to put food on the table when Chris was young, so yes, but our good work does get recognized. We got a $5,000 check in from a group that just said, you do incredible things. I love what you're doing. And that came in today's mail, and I was shocked and thrilled,
Nice.
So we get that. I truly believe if you just do good and, and put your money where your mouth is, it comes back to you. It comes back to you. It really does. It really does.
Yeah. When I read that, I almost fell out of my chair. Like, how does that happen? Like you said, there are folks that are without naming any names or pointing anywhere. There are folks that do far less with much more resource. And that's so interesting. So we're going to, I love the sort of mission that you have going on. I wanted to ask you an interesting question. You've been in the field so long, the space so long. And it's so personal to you. I think everyone has heard of the way you put it of on the spectrum. I think everyone knows what autism is, but can you share a bit about the scale or the impact?
Absolutely.
What's going on, sort of whatever numbers you have, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. In New Jersey, 1 out of every 32 children in New Jersey have autism.
Wow.
AIDS, cancer, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, muscular dystrophy combined, more children have autism than those 6 combined. 1 out of every 20 boys in New Jersey has autism. Part of it, New Jersey has better recognition and better tallying. We look at school results, school stats, and medical. Not all states look at both, so that's part of it. But nationwide, it's huge. A spectrum, and a lot of people, unless you live it, don't get what I mean by spectrum. Range of ability. So you have individuals all the way on the one end severely impacted. By severely impacted, completely nonverbal. You can have a 20-year-old daughter changing her diapers, brushing her teeth. And nonverbal doesn't mean we can't get them to communicate. 15% will never speak ever, ever. Some have vocalization, sound, some are mute, but 15% will never speak a spoken word. But yes, could we teach sign language? I'm a sign language instructor. That's how I taught my son to communicate. Pictures. Apple has changed the face of technology forever for special education. And we're reaching kids that 20 years ago were unreachable, people thought. And then as we move up the spectrum, okay, a couple words, a couple, where's mom? Those, maybe not where, but mom, or, want water. And the 75%, so 3/4, lifelong care. My son, lifelong care. My son is amazing. He has a job. He works in a professional kitchen. 1 day a week, he earns a paycheck. He's the light of my life. He goes everywhere with me, and he's just the most polite, amazing young man in the world. And he can't be left home alone.
Sure.
At the same time. So 75% lifelong care, but my son's a productive citizen and actually, like I said, earn a paycheck. 25% of individuals with autism can live independently, and hopefully we can increase that number slightly. On the top of the spectrum, some of the greatest scientists, mathematicians, computer experts in the world have autism. Doesn't mean they don't struggle with social anxiety or communication issues or other issues. They do. And very often individuals on that end fall through the cracks because, they're smart. They're doing A's and B's in school. They don't need any help at all. I purposely not said high or low functioning. Those are two terms that we need as a community to society to eliminate. And those are words I used to say all the time when Chris was young. Oh, is he high functioning? Is he low functioning? And the funny thing is, Josh, no one ever says middle functioning, right? It's like almost everyone's in the middle, by the way. But it's like, he only knows 111 words. That's low functioning. 112? Oh, he's high functioning now. Got over that hump there. Because if I say, Josh, you're low functioning, well, then I don't expect anything of you, right? Yeah, my bar is really low.
For sure.
And every parent, every teacher of someone with autism knows someone that somebody would classify as low functioning that could do amazing things, amazing, incredible things. But almost more dangerous, Josh, if I say you're high functioning, well, you don't need any help at all. So low functioning, I ignore your gifts. High functioning, I ignore your challenges. So I'd rather describe where the person is. And it's important to realize that our police training, when they roll up on someone who's severely impacted and maybe screaming and flapping their arms and jumping up and down, the police, even if they haven't been trained by us and they don't know it's autism, they know it's something, right? And they have to calm this person down. What's more dangerous, if you pull over someone driving on their own with autism and they're not making eye contact when they hand you the license because of that's how autism affects that individual, the police already thinks this is a bad guy, and things can go really, really south. So it's important to know the spectrum, and there's a spectrum within each child. Your level, my level of functioning is level, high or low, wherever we're at. Every individual with autism, everyone, not 99, 100 out of 100, skill sets like this. Some are much higher than others. As an educator, I'm thrilled with that, because if I could identify the core deficits, like, he doesn't get this, I could work on these and his top skills go through the roof. The problem as an educator, as a parent, as a community worker, first responder, every other person I encounter has these skills already has all the ones below it. So that's the difference with autism. That's why autism's different from many other disabilities. And it's an invisible disability in that we look typical. If I had 5 photographs of 5 individuals with autism and 5 who don't, shuffle them up, nobody, including myself, by a photograph could say, oh yeah, he has it, he doesn't. It's defined by certain deficits, social communication behavior.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the sort of overview there. You hit on or you're sort of heading right where I wanted to put us in the education realm. And I feel like this is one of your core pillars. As I went through and I was researching your website, I saw 3 education pillars: the workshops and conferences where you'll take teachers and parents, the first responders training, and then
Yep.
the in-service, the professional development piece.
Correct.
I wanted to ask you, when someone goes to a training, if someone were to do, you mentioned sign language, or if I were to go do CPR training, when I leave CPR training, obviously I'm then CPR certified, or I know how to apply CPR. Or if I go to driving school or training, when I leave there, I'm able to take or pass the driving test. When someone goes to your school, your training, your program, what do they leave with? And I know that's a very broad question.
Yeah, no. Good question.
Okay.
Back to my concreteness of our training. They leave with specific tools and techniques to better reach the children. We're known for all of our training, and people will tell you it's best training when if you go to a POAC training, they just rave about it. And we hit topics that other people don't touch. We do a lot on sexuality and safety that people don't touch. 70% of all females with autism were sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday.
Wow.
7 out of 10. 30%, roughly a third of our boys on the spectrum are sexually assaulted before the 18th birthday, and people don't talk about it. 1 out of 4 people shot and killed by police officers are special needs, mental health issues, autism, developmental disabilities. People don't talk about this. So what do you leave with? And that's an excellent question. What can I instantly do to keep my child safe or grow or learn? I had an email once from a speech teacher. I won't mention the town. She wrote me, she goes, Gary, I was a teacher for 23. I have been a teacher for 23 years, speech teacher. And she goes, there was always kids I couldn't reach, always. And it just, I dedicate myself, and it's just, you write it up as you can't help everybody. She goes, I attended your training 2 weeks ago, and one of the girls who I wrote off as a girl that I just can't reach, I used your techniques that your instructor taught, and I'm reaching this girl. And she goes, you have changed my life. She goes, do I feel an immense sense of guilt for all the kids who I wrote off, who I didn't help? Yeah. But she goes, I'm looking forward to my next 23 years, to all the children that I can. And we get that. There's just like that moment, half of children with autism, half individuals of everybody on the autism spectrum will go missing in their life. Will go missing. We have to address that and teach that. So one of my favorite classes is Hidden Dangers, keeping your child safe in the school, home, and community. Again, concrete, on our website underneath safety resources. You want a ID for your child with autism? Here are the best IDs in the world. You want a GPS tracking? Here are the best GPS tracking. Again, concrete. You want it? Here it is. Yeah. My greatest challenge, and this is going to sound rough, my greatest challenge to overcome in keeping children and adults with autism safe are the parents of those children and adults with autism. And guys, I'm saying that with love in my heart as a dad of an amazing young man with autism, because us parents, we do this, and I'm pointing left and right at the same time. The parents of the more involved kids, the more severely impacted kids, say this: nothing's happening to my son because someone I know and love and trust is always with them. It's those damn kids, working in the mall by themselves. Those are the ones getting into trouble. My parents are the more independent individuals. Nothing's happening to my child. They tell me everything that happens. So it's those damn kids who can't talk. We don't get life expectancy at 36 years old, less than half of the life expectancy for you and I, largely in part due to accidental deaths, right? And medical complications. We don't get life expectancy cut in half. We don't get the sexual abuse rate through the roof. We don't get the suicide rate. And you don't think of kids with autism killing themselves. Suicide rates 3 times higher than typical children.
Wow.
3 times higher. You don't get, and there's a lot more stats that are rough unless it's all of our kids, and the best way to ensure that something bad happens is not to teach individuals how to take care of themselves. In New Jersey, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I think the rest of the country follows suit. In New Jersey, every child in our school system gets sex ed. In fact, if you don't want your child for personal reasons or religious reasons to have sexual education training, they go over safety and everything else, you have to specifically send a letter into the school. I don't want Johnny to get sex ed training. Every child gets it, except if you have a individual education plan and special education. So you have kids that are sexually assaulted at close to 70%, and they're specifically excluded from it unless you write a letter saying, no, I want this in my daughter's training. I want my daughter has a 70% chance of being physically, sexually assaulted. And what about just normal human sexual, ability? Are we denying that for individuals on the spectrum? Everything from masturbation to consensual sex for the individuals in the higher. Do we not teach them about that? Well, right now we're not. Right now we're not, unless and most people don't even realize that. When I tell that to people, they're like, well, that can't be the case. It's the case.
I'm so my mind is jumping all over the place. Like how does this go untalked about, unpointed to, unresolved? So many questions. Man, that's your education pillar, and we could spend another 30 minutes unpacking that. Your other strong pillar is the events side of this, and you talked about the community and I like this light segue, because you talked about the finger pointing, and there's this side and that side, and they're saying, well, if this side was able to resolve their problems, we'd all be good. And this side, A is pointing to B, B is pointing to A. We get all A and B in the same room. I looked, you guys have put on more than 3,000 recreational events and seen more than 343,000 attendees. That is so many people. I know you shared a bit about what's going on. Can you just share how frequently you're seeing these events? Who are you inviting? How often are you having them? I read that they're free. I mean, I just kind of I'm looking to put a bow on the second pillar here. Can you talk just a little bit more about those events?
Yeah. Our events for our members, always 100% free. Membership's $40 a year, and not a month, a year. And honestly, here's the weird thing. It's not the $40. It's that if they don't pay the $40, they sign up for stuff and then they don't come. The $40 is more, yes, if the level of support helps us keep the lights on, which please, everybody become a member, even if you don't have a kid with autism. But it ensures, but our events, money's never an issue. Even when we do our police and first responder training, we charge for that. There's a fee, but we're on the first conversation. If your department does not have the money, we do it for free. And if you need us to come out 9 days in a row, and you need us to come at midnight for the midnight shift guys and 6 a.m. for the morning guys, we do it, and we do it for free if you're telling me your department doesn't have the budget. And we do.
Yeah.
And we do. I'd rather get paid, because the more money we get paid, the more we could do for children. We got that. I'm just going down the list: a cooking event, indoor miniature golf, a music event, a planting on the farm with horseback riding, wagon rides, petting zoo. We're going to an amusement park. We have a surf day. We're a huge indoor gym, an outdoor family barbecue, a huge family carnival, 2 family carnivals in different parts of the state. Another gymnastics, a 5K, another gym party, a trunk or treat. We do a lot of stuff for adults as well, because a lot of our kids on the spectrum, 27, my son wants to go trick-or-treating. But if we went through a regular neighborhood at 27, people were like, what the hell's going on here? So in our case, we had a senior development, senior community, and I wish I could remember their name. They adopted us, and they said, we want to help. So they tie a ribbon to every mailbox that's going to be contributing. We do a map, and we have all of these adults every Halloween go to this adult community.
How cool.
And trick or treat. And the old people love it. They're set up, and God, the dentist should give us a kickback because these kids walk away with so much candy. It's so much candy. And we partner with everybody. We have hundreds. We have hundreds. I tell you how much. There was a weekend once, take COVID out of the picture. There was a weekend one time in 2019 that I had a Saturday that I didn't have an event and I didn't know what to do. And I called my coworkers. I'm like, wait, did I delete something? There's nothing today? Well, we got something tomorrow and something, nothing today? Yeah, we average 5 or 6 events a week post-pandemic.
Insane.
And we're coming out of it now. We're coming out of it now. But yet all the time. And we have an online support group on Facebook, which I have to mention, New Jersey Autism Warriors. You have to live in Jersey. You have to have a kid on the spectrum or a grandchild. We have 5,700 New Jersey families on there.
Wow.
Closed Facebook group. And everything from, oh, I have a kid with autism. Where do I get the haircut? Because he hates haircuts. Well, where do you live? Oh, I live in XYZ town. Guess what? And you have 12 moms that live in XYZ town or close by, tell you where to go and how to do it. And in addition to all our events, there are official online support group. They have events of their own, and the parents get together.
Nice.
And we're always thinking outside the box. We have fathers conferences just for the dads. It's hard. Men and women, mothers and fathers handle a diagnosis of autism very differently, very differently. Moms are right there. They're on the front line. They're sitting at the desks. They're doing the drills. They're researching the therapist. Dads want to fix it. How do I fix this? How do I get, where's the duct tape?
Yeah.
And it's hard for so many of the dads because many fathers, not all, but many fathers struggle with being emotional and sharing things. And, we're so, trained and shaped. Well, we're the provider. We take care of everything. And then you realize, oh God, what's going to happen when I'm dead? Who's going to take care of my son then? And that's a real hard thing. So we talk about that. We deal with it. And again, we give solutions and specific solutions,
Yeah, man, there's something about getting a community together. And this is entrepreneurship, which is the world that I live in. I'm a sales guy. I keep talking back to this. One of the biggest challenges that you're having right now is this internal conflict and finger pointing, people circling the wagon and shooting inward. One of the pivotal moments for my company and my 9-to-5 was when sales was pointing at marketing and saying, these guys aren't pitching the right product. And then marketing is pointing to sales and saying, these guys, when they get on the calls, they're just not delivering the right message. And there are these siloed approaches, and management's hearing two different things. And they said, you know what? Let's get everybody in the same room and let's hash this out right now. And, in the matter of 2 or 3 hours, all of a sudden we were all facing the same direction and realized we all have the same goal here, and it's to fill the funnel and close deals. And I think everybody remotely, whether you're looking at autism, you're looking at entrepreneurship or whatever, it's really easy to say, oh, those people over there have it easier, or those people over there is, nice for their, it's because of them that I'm having a problem. But when you get everybody in the same room and everybody starts talking about their challenges and their issues and resolutions and community, there's something about getting it that sort of level sets, points everyone in the same direction, and starts to make that, it makes the war a bit easier, right? You're not fighting each other. You're fighting the original battle, which is kind of what we're angling for.
Exactly.
That's what I want to wrap with here is you've talked a lot about your mission. You've talked about the resolution. I love the impact, and we've gone through some of the numbers. For someone that is tuned in today, there's sort of two two questions here. Some folks are going to be local, and if that's the case, they're able to get boots on the ground or help you in more of a local setting. Other folks that are dialing in from around the world or around the US, how could both groups get involved? You talked about the membership. You talked about the Facebook group for those that are local. Any other avenues or resources, places that we could point them to?
Yeah, we have on our website ways to help. And, like you said, the, fundraising events, Facebook fundraisers, one of the easiest things in the world. And Facebook doesn't take a cut. You do, hey, I want to raise money for POAC Autism Services, and 100%. And whether it's $50 or $300, it makes a huge difference. If there's a company that wants to sponsor our event, and we will go anywhere for the police and first responder training. That's something about maybe, raising funds that bring us out and, to train people, but sponsorship support, that's it. Because like we said earlier, we're not funded by the government.
Yeah.
We don't get a penny from the government. It's all entirely privately funded. And we're here from you. And we get phone calls from around the world. We get phone calls from other countries sometime. And going on our website, there's a lot of resources. And the safety resources are universal.
Yeah.
Our walk team. We have a walkathon every year, April, May, June area. Start a walk team. And here's the thing. You don't have to live here to have a walk team. My mother lives in Arizona. She has a walk team, and she doesn't fly out to New Jersey because she doesn't like to fly anymore. But, she does a walk team, and she, gets $20 from all her tennis buddies that she plays tennis with, stuff like that. And I just, I said while we were talking before the interview started, I'm thrilled on being able to be exposed to people who might not know us.
Yeah.
And the fact that I know that there's going to be families that during this interview that we're now be able to reach and help and change that child's life, that keeps me going for like another 10 years. It's so exciting to me, but we need help. And at the end of the day, it's money, to be blunt, but fundraising, dress down days at work. Like I said, we got the $5,000 check. I don't even know who the people are.
Yeah.
I don't even know who the people are. They just looked at what we do and liked it And I would tell anybody who wants to donate to anybody, I love donating to people who are making a real change, and go on their website and take a look at what they do and scroll through their events and their pictures and see, and if they can't really articulate exactly what they do, well, then maybe donate to somebody who can. Frankly, right?
Man, for the families that you're talking about that have tuned in and, halfway through this interview, 3/4 of the way through this interview, they realize like, this is what I was looking for. This is the type of information I needed. I could not have found a better person to put on the other end of this. I mean, your expertise, what you guys have going on, you're the type of mission that you're talking about. And you can hit your website, all of my studying, you're very transparent with what you have going on and what you've built and the moving pieces. So I would definitely point everybody towards that. Gary, man, really, really appreciate your time today, man. This was fantastic.
Josh, awesome. And just know we're here. If anybody's listening to this, they need help, POAC.net, POAC.net, and we're here for you. We're family, guys.
Beautiful. For those of you that are listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on your YouTube or podcast app. That will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation. So more people learn about the importance of finding ways to make others live better lives every single day.